I'm back, and I've got a Kallax behind me, just like a real tabletop YouTuber. So I'm still in the new office, the flat that you can see. I'm giving this a try. I've got the camera, I think, in a slightly better setup. This microphone seemed to work fine, so I'm going to stick with that for now. I think this angle works, but I'm moving them about a bit and trying to figure those things out. But otherwise, I think I've got a pretty solid setup here. I'm very strapped for time, so I couldn't really work on a longer format video. So this is just a quick to camera, but I thought I would cover something that I teased a while ago, which you've already seen in the title of this video, which was 5 reasons that my D&D players should hate me, which is semi a confession of how I run D&D in possibly a slightly unconventional way, and just a general kind of idea of how I run games and how I like to run games. If you follow my communities tab, I did a poll a while ago that included this as an option. This one didn't win, but it included this as an option, and it's something that I didn't win, so I didn't write it, but it was something kind of percolating in my mind, and it was quite easy to write as well. So I thought I'd just give you this quick update, just to have something for this week. Also, I know it's all books here, but the entire rest of these shelves, there's 4 rows of shelves, and they are all board games. It's just the one that right immediately behind me just happens to be books, including Idiot's Guide to Forensics, which is just a random thing that, as a writer, I just happen to have. Anyway, you're here for the hot D&D takes. Now, I will say that if you are one of my players and you're not already feel like you're aware of the peek behind the curtain, then maybe don't watch this video. It could be illuminating in a way that you won't enjoy. But yes, this is going to be an inside look into how I prefer to run games, which will also hopefully perhaps explain why I'm not so keen on D&D. Number 1, I don't know or care what my players can do. I'm currently running 2 D&D games, each with 5 players. One of them just hit level 18, and the other group is, I think, level 8 or 9, somewhere around there. I don't have a preference on level range. I don't find low levels or mid levels or high levels particularly difficult to run or easier to run. It's all basically the same. We'll probably get into that more as I explain what these points are, but yeah, I don't really understand why people would have a preference for level range. I can run basically whatever. I see a lot of people say, oh, high level D&D is bad, or low level D&D is bad, or mid-range D&D falls apart, but from those points, all I can sort of conclude is that a lot of people who run D&D are kind of bad at it, because it all just works fine. But that's beside the point. What I'm telling you is that I don't know what my players can do. I know their classes, more or less. Some of them are multi-classed, particularly in the level 18 group, and I don't know what the balance there is. I'm not even sure entirely what their multi-classes are necessarily, because I haven't checked. I also realised now that one of the players recently started a new character, and I don't know what they are. They can cast magic. Are they a sorcerer? If you're in my Monday night group, I've just realised that I don't know what character class Dennis is. I want to say sorcerer. Maybe that's correct. Anyway, I don't know what they're capable of doing, and I don't care to find out. Obviously, I see it through the course of the game, and I'm aware that they can do some healing and some sneaking and some whatever. I've got a vague idea of what their characters are good at, but I don't strictly know, and I don't tailor my games to suit their needs. I just put a challenge in front of them, and whoever they choose to try and figure their way around it, that's up to them. I don't know what they can do, and I'm probably not going to find out. I know that there's a lot of rules locked around what the players' capabilities are, but that's kind of on them, and I don't generally want to know. I'm happy for them to police themselves in that regard. If they've told me that they're allowed to take this spell or this feat or this ability or max out their whatever, I believe them. I'm going to assume that they are doing fine, and I'm not worried about them cheating in any way, partly because of the other 4 rules. But yeah, it just doesn't worry me. If they want to cheat, they can cheat. Who cares? That's my number 1, because I don't know how bothersome it's genuinely going to be to D&Ders, but yeah, that's that thing. But it helps me to be relaxed about that because, 2, I'm not obeying the rules. The rules are for you. I don't care to obey them. Other systems that I run are much looser for the GM. They allow for more creativity, and the GM is more crafting the scene or the story or whatever it is to suit what the players want to do. D&D has a ton of rules, and I don't know what some of them are, and I'm not going to find out, because I'm not going to obey them anyway. My settings, my scenarios, my NPCs, my enemies often don't obey the rules, and I don't care. I'm trying to craft something that is challenging and interesting and also surprising, because my players know D&D better than I do. Many of them do. Many of them run it. Many of them have been playing it longer than me. They know the game better than me, so I want to surprise them. And as a result, I will make shit up, because I'm a writer and that's what I do. But yeah, I do not consider it necessary for me to follow the rules as the DM, just because I don't wanna. It's boring. If I wanted to do that, I would just play a board game. I have many war games, and I enjoy playing strategic games. I would get back into Warhammer if I wanted to do that. I don't want to do that, so I'm not going to waste my time doing it in D&D. Sorry guys. Case in point, number 3. I'm making my enemies up as I go along. Like I said, a lot of my players know D&D better than I do, so when I use a monster from the monster manual, I modify it a bit, or I combine 2 monsters into one, or I just straight up invent a monster, and because D&D sort of covers everything, just in its breadth of its rules, that monster will vaguely resemble something that's already in the book, and that's fine. I have a lot of the books, so I can then look that monster up after the fight has already started, and I can see what it can do, but yeah, I'm just sort of throwing things out there. I can see this one bothering hardcore D&D players, that I have no real loyalty to the D&D lore, but I want to remain entertained, and it's entertaining for me to be writing, to be creating things. I don't find it entertaining to be reading stats from a book. If the players want to do that, great. They've got a big book full of their own stats that they can follow, but I am just going to pick and choose what I think I want my monsters to do, and if it doesn't quite fit with what the D&D rules say, well, I just do it anyway. The extreme version of this is number 4. I'm not tracking my enemies in combat. This is a big one. This is a real big one. So in combats, even large combats, I'm not keeping track of my enemy's stuff. This is partly because sometimes I forget, but also I just don't feel the need to. Sometimes I will forget an entire round to write down how much damage the players have done, and I'll just guesstimate what it was at the end of the round. Like, yeah, it feels like they did that much damage, write that down, there we are. But even if I don't do that, my monsters don't have hit points. I'm not recording their hit points. They don't have a starting hit points that they go down from. I have a vague idea of how tough I think they should be, and I do check the book, although I've never kept to that ever. And then I just kind of think at a certain point, well, they're probably very wounded now. If the players do X amount of damage to them, it will kill them. Basically, when I feel like a fight's gone on long enough and the player's been doing well enough, I just feel like, yeah, they probably deserve a victory here. Again, this is from me playing much looser systems, but I just don't care to obey these rules of D&D. It just doesn't interest me. I don't leave it to the dice to reward or punish them, I leave it to their decisions. If they're making good decisions, then they're doing well in the fight. If they're making bad decisions, then they're doing badly in the fight. I'm still rolling dice for monsters to hit or miss and for damage, so there is still that element there. I'm not just making up numbers to hurt the players. And if they die, they die. If they don't, then good for them. And perhaps the worst, most egregious part of this is for spellcasting enemies. I don't bother to keep track of their spell slots. I just feel like, yeah, they can probably do a handful of high-level spells and then more low-level spells, and eventually, well, they've done this kind of spell enough, they can't do that anymore. I mean, maybe should I keep better track? Yeah, probably, but it doesn't interest me. I don't care. And it seems to work, as I've got a fairly good feel for how balanced the combat should be, and I don't go nuts and allow a enemy constantly casting Finger of Death every single turn. I just give a ballpark kind of idea, and because my players know I'm customizing my villains and monsters anyway, they can expect that something will be changed here and there. This I'm expecting to get the most hate for, just because it's a really bad way to run D&D, and I'm aware of that. I know it's not a good way to run D&D. It's, some say it's lazy or just terrible management, but I just don't care. I just don't care enough about D&D to run it any other way. I don't want to be running complex miniatures. Like I say, if I want to run complex miniatures based combat, I'll play a board game or I'll play Warhammer. I don't want to play that in my D&D. I want to come here for the role playing. And I know people say it's all role playing, but it isn't. Sorry, it isn't all role playing. Sometimes it's miniatures war combat, and I don't want to do that. Getting a little bit more into this video than I thought I was going to. The last one will come as no surprise, because number 5, I don't know what's going to happen next. There's often a debate online about whether DMs should be telling a story or allowing their players into a sandbox where they can do whatever they want. And to be honest, both sides are sort of wrong. Yes, you should be telling a story because that's interesting. Sorry, you're wrong if you think otherwise. If you just want your players to around in a sandbox, then that's boring. I don't want to play that game. But a story doesn't intrinsically have to be railroad. It doesn't have to have a series of points that it has to hit. It can meander and go wherever the players want it to go. But without some structure or logic, then whatever the players is doing is largely pointless. If there's no story, then the players can't adjust it. They can't interact with it. They can't change it. There has to be something there for them to mess with, otherwise their decisions are meaningless. And the way I run, and this is a precursor to the video that I will explain how I improvise an entire campaign, is that I genuinely don't know what's going to happen next. We'll see this in the first series of Fate, but just to, before you go into that, before that series starts, which won't be for at least a month, when we go into that series and that game properly begins, I only have one single idea, and that single idea is resolved within the first half an hour of the first episode. From then on, I'm making the story up as I go along. But why that decision is on this list is because I can see people seeing it as the worst of both worlds. There is a set story, even though I'm making it up as I go along, that the players might feel that they are unable to change, or at least they are being reactionary to, but at the same time it's fully sandboxed to the point where everything that they do will just change at the whim, and whatever they're doing is sort of the right thing to do simply by virtue of their doing it. Well, if they do it, I will write the story to whatever it is, meaning that there are no wrong answers as such. I can see that potentially bothering some people. It's a weird combination of vagueness and yet structured vagueness. I don't know if that's possible. I will definitely go into more detail on how I run that in the future video that I've been writing for ages. But yeah, that's kind of the final element of this list, where players' decisions are so important to the story, but they can't escape the story regardless, because their decisions are the story, which, as a lot of DMs say, is the ideal way to run a game, but almost no DMs are doing this, I'm fairly sure. What they actually mean is they've got a sandbox world laid out with politics and positions and stuff for the players to interact with, and then the players are choosing how they interact with it. Well, I don't have a sandbox. I have basically nothing. I have a blank page, and the players are writing the story as they go along, whether they realise they're doing that or not. And there are DMs who may think they're doing this, but I'm doing the extreme version of this, trust me. So there we have it, a quick video from me, 5 reasons I think that many D&D players, hardcore D&D players, would hate me, or just hate the way that I run D&D, because I've said it many times, I don't really like D&D. I much prefer freeform storytelling, and D&D has way too restrictive on that. I still haven't got around to looking at old editions and just seeing if there's a difference, but I strongly suspect that there really isn't. But yeah, pick one of those rules. Which one of those rules did you hate the most? Do you in fact employ a lot of them yourself, but you're afraid to admit it to your players? I don't fudge dice, but I fudge almost every single other thing that it's in play. It's very. I can't imagine that there aren't people who don't hate that. I had to put a video out. I didn't have much time to think about it. This is what I've come up with. I'm a glutton for punishment. I'm just asking for some vitriol here. No, not really, don't do that. But yeah, so yes, let me know what you think about those particular rules, or how maybe your sneaky confessions that you in fact employ some of them as well. But yeah, that's me. That's my 5 things. So yeah, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you did. If you've just found this channel, then I do talk other things about other RPGs. We're running some actual plays coming up soon. It's all good. We have a Ko-Fi support page. All in the links below. Check out our actual play stuff, my other video essay stuff, my other bloggy things. I've had a little behind the scenes kind of thing of the building of this channel, and keep an eye out for when I have some more time, hopefully over May, to film more videos, and I'm not just kind of rushing through them like I have been this month. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. The end.